Good morning, guys. Melissa here. I'm just getting home after going to go pay a bill. What do you do? I want to talk about this. What do you do when you don't always have the money to pay your bills and you're trying everything? That's something that I've gone through in my life. Living in a small trailer with 5 kids. I mean, we had the first three, like I said before, a year and a half apart and 2 years apart. I'm just turning this heat down. And then we had a situation with cancer. My husband had cancer, and then we had 2 more kids, which we didn't think we could have anymore because the doctors said that we couldn't. So what do you do when the money just isn't there? Um, my husband works over 40 hours a week. And when you have kids, it costs money. I mean, even when you are being really frugal, it still costs money. And that includes, getting Medicaid, getting WIC, not food stamps, but food pantries. I've done, let me see, just a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm thinking about like the first three kids we had. Things went pretty good, and then the economy seemed to hit us first. When the economy went down, I think it hit the little guy first before it did the big guys. But the economy went down, and then let me see. Yeah, when my husband had cancer, at one point there was no money coming in, and luckily we were in a trailer, and the rent and bills were not too hard to cover. We had the church help us. But that, for anyone now who has insurance and they're getting covered at $70,000 or whatever, that still would not have been enough. We were lucky back then. I had made tons of phone calls, and the catastrophic illness program is something that helped. The first operation was, let me see, it was right before we were having our third son. Yeah, that's when the first one hit. And that was a surgery, and then there was another surgery in that December. So, we just had our third son in November, so it was like September, actually, surgery, November, we had our first home birth, and then December, another surgery. So, even if we had at that time a house and we had a big savings, it would have been wiped out. No doubt, wiped out. It was over $100,000 easy. And that did not include the 5 years of care afterwards, of, remission, looking out for things. And luckily he was okay, but that's a lot of money that would have just been taken, and we would have had to start over or gone bankrupt. Because who can afford something like that happening, even with the best of insurance? So God, and I am a Christian, and I am not ashamed of that, so God brought us out of that. And I've shared stories of how God has provided. Like one year I didn't even have money for Christmas, and you would think, geez, why don't you plan ahead? It's every single year. Christmas is the same time. But when you don't have money and you're poor, it doesn't matter how much you try. If it's not there, it's not there. And therefore the resources is what you need to do. You need to take the resources and be thankful. I had somebody once, when I went and I had my 3 kids, and I had taken WIC, and I already was raised to kind of do it yourself, and you don't need charity, and it was hard enough for me to take WIC. And I was at the grocery store, and someone was behind me, and a couple ladies, and said, oh, it must be nice to be able to have WIC. And I remember I almost got off it, and this older woman said to me, don't even answer that, Melissa. Don't even justify it with an answer. She said, your husband works hard, doesn't he? Yep. You work hard, don't you? Yep. So the tax money, she said, is there for people who need a hand, for families. The tax money is there to support families. And I would much rather see tax money there for families than abortions. But anyway, she said, don't even justify that with an answer. But that's how easy I used to stumble sometimes when somebody would be mean to me. And I obviously, there were areas I didn't care, but that was a sensitive area for me. So I just continued with WIC. And then years down the road, when we no longer qualified for it, I look back and I say, I'm so glad I took it, because not only was it helpful at the time, but there was accountability that I was taking care of my kids. The food pantries, accountability. I was going there every week, at one point 2 or 3 pantries, to make sure we made it. And that accountability was built in, that I was taking care of my kids when others in the family wanted to bring accusations against me, calling me a gold digger, saying, I just basically married my husband for money. And that is so far from the truth, because my husband doesn't come from money. So, I married him because, not money was not an issue at all. And I've never been a gold digger, and I've always been somebody who's just kind of, somebody who can live on nothing, pretty much. So we lived in the trailer for a long time. And my point is, when you don't have the money to pay the bills, what I found you need to do is you need to communicate. One time we had an electric bill, and of course trailers charge a lot more for electricity because of some rate that they have. I think I don't know, it's a lot. So we're living in a trailer that's not insulated well at all, and the fuel is going literally right out the door. We had the place weatherized, but because the walls were really thin and it was a really old trailer, like the snow would melt during the winter on the roof, because the heat was going up, and there was just the insulation was awful. So so the bill was getting up there, and we didn't have it, and I had made a phone call to them that I didn't have it. Now, depending on who you talk to at the electric company, depends on what's going to happen, because I've had to call the electric company many times in my life, and sometimes they'll be like, well, let's do this kind of payment arrangement, or we can change it to this, or let's give you a 10-day extension, or whatever it is. So I had somebody who was not being helpful, and I said, I don't know what to do, to my husband. I said, they want their money now, we don't have it. And he said, just forget it, kind of thing. Well, they had shut us off, and I wasn't able to get back to calling them before family got involved and started accusing me again of mishandling money. And of course, that's not the case. When you have to buy food for your family, and you have to choose between food on the table, or if a company has to wait for their money, that's what you need to do. So poverty can be really tough. It can cost you more sometimes, because you're making more phone calls. Your time is valuable. You're making more. You have to work almost double at that budget with the effort to make sure that you're meeting the needs. And I remember at that time, I was so hurt by these accusations, because here I am with my kids, and I'm pinching pennies. I mean, literally going to the grocery store and counting the difference between the pennies at the grocery store. And family did help, and they said they actually offered to help us. We did not go to them. They actually offered. And then once they didn't like something, they would take back up an offense of some sort and use it against us. And it was really toxic. But anyways, so when you're pinching pennies, I mean, I even had family say, then why do you have kids if you can't afford them? And that's not the case. The case is, in many ways, we could afford them. I mean, I was very responsible with making sure we had Medicaid, and making sure they had very good care in the home births, etc. But just because you struggle in a certain area does not mean you should not have kids. Kids are a blessing. They've been one of the very best things that happened in my life, other than getting saved, and a strong faith in God. Best things. So they bring joy and riches to your life, and they are your life. I mean, when you get older like I am, and you're looking at, I saw in commercials women who have been like in the, you know, have wasted their lives. They live totally for themselves. And the fruit of the womb is a reward. Later on, when you have children, you look back on your life and you may not be as good looking as you were when you were younger. You may not be as in shape, but you have the fruit of your hands as your reward. And where other women have just chosen to totally waste their life, there's nothing left in the end. And especially if you don't have that faith. Same with our faith. You want to give the best of your life to God. You want to study while you can, while your mind is sharp. You want to build your life with good works while you can, because when you're older and you can't see anymore, you can't really go anywhere anymore, you're not going to be as strong as you would have been if you invested highly. I mean, that's something I did when I had my kids. I invested highly in the Word of God, mostly going to church and hearing the preaching. So that helped me a lot. And when you get older too, you have different trials that come your way, and if you stay in the Word, the trials are easier to get over. So anyways, what I'm saying is, this is just, I'm going to wrap it up. It's just a video about if you cannot pay your bills and you're trying to do everything you can to make sure that you do, you need to give yourself a break. Okay? Not everybody can pay their bills on time. Not everybody can, I look at all these financial channels, which are great to help me discipline myself, but not everybody can be in that place. And there's different times in life that you may have more money at sometimes than you did at other times. You need to accept it and just say, I'm doing the best I can, and that's it. And leave the results to God. And also be praying for your finances. Number one thing you can do to make it in life is to pray for your finances. I had a situation one day that I prayed about finances. Nobody knew about it, and I made a phone call to somebody who I owed money, and I didn't even have to worry about it after that. So God is the one who provides. He's the one who owns all the cattle on the hill, and he's the one who takes care of us. He's our Father in heaven, and he takes care of all of our needs if we trust in him. Okay, thanks for joining me, guys.